Hi everyone, welcome to accelerate your cloud architectures with the right storage options. My name is Jun Park. My pronouns are he, him, and I lead Storage Specialist SA team in APJ. In my role, I lead a talented team of specialists who are committed to supporting our customers with business challenges and providing innovative strategies to meet the unique needs of our customers, and as a result, ensuring customer success in an ever-changing market. Today I'm here to talk about what AWS storage services exist and how you can choose the right one when you're moving your applications or building a new one. Okay, let's get into this. Today, many, if not every business, is considered to be a data-driven business. The world at the moment is generating data at an exponential rate. As IDC has forecasted that just in 2022, the amount of data that was created and replicated all over the world is expected to be around 101 zettabytes. What's more exciting is that IDC expects this to more than double in size from 2022 to 2026. This data comes from various sources ranging from applications to phones, cars, and any devices that can generate data in every industry around the world. This is huge, and there's no better time to architect your environment to meet this demand than ever. As the size of the data ever grows around the world, it'll be critical for businesses to harness those data and power them to business decision making. Now here's a graph from a recent machine learning survey that looks at how machine learning systems are working with more complex and larger sets of data. Now, the study itself was super interesting, but here's the really important takeaway. The data set that drives machine learning models is increasing at a huge rate. Now, in this study, researchers looked at the number of data parameters as a way of looking at how the complexity of machine learning system is evolving over time. And as you can tell, the size and the number of data are growing like no other. Because models are getting more complex and larger, and we expect that AI/ML will be a lot closer to our daily life in the very near future, if not today, we can expect that the need for durable and available and also performance storage to store those data will be critical. And AWS is the right place for this. So let's take a quick look at why AWS is the right place for this. There's no other cloud provider that has over 16 years of proven track record at the highest operational standards for durability, availability, security, scale, and relentless innovation for storage. As you can see, we have many data services starting from data storage, where you could store those valuable data, to protecting data and making it work for your business. Data storage will be a focus for today, and let's find out more about each storage options. Okay, first, we'll take a closer look at object storage service. Object storage, or also known as Amazon S3, started 16 years ago, where today, scale of S3 became immense. We store more than 200 trillion objects and processed more than 100 million requests per second. If you look at 200 trillion objects, that's about 26,000 objects per person on Earth. And the reason why this is possible is the distributed nature of the service and the simplicity of its usage and its design principles when we started 16 years ago, which is storage for internet. If we zoom in on Amazon S3, it offers a range of storage classes designed for different use cases. These include S3 Standard for general purpose storage of frequently accessed data, S3 Intelligent Tiering for data that are suitable with unknown or changing access patterns, S3 Standard Infrequent Access, and S3 One Zone Infrequent Access for long-lived but less frequently accessed data, and Amazon S3 Glacier and Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive for long-term archive and digital preservation. Since we launched S3 Intelligent Tiering, which is the storage class that automatically reduces your storage cost for data that's not being accessed frequently, customers have saved more than $250 million so far. And those savings will just keep on accumulating. Amazon S3 Intelligent Tiering by default allows you to opt in to Archive Access Tier, Deep Archive Access Tier, or even both. Archive access tier automatically archives objects that have not been accessed for a minimum of 90 consecutive days. You can extend the last access time for archiving up to maximum 2 years, depending on your access patterns. You can also make a good use of deep archive access tier for data that can be accessed asynchronously. After activation, the deep archive access tier automatically archives objects that have not been accessed for a minimum of 180 consecutive days. You can extend the last access time for archiving to a maximum of 2 years. To summarize, Amazon S3 has 7 storage classes. As with all things storage, you can choose the right one for your application based on your application performance, availability, and cost requirements. As a general best practice, adopting a lifecycle policy and controlling which tier a particular object resides is recommended. Okay, let's move on to file storage services. When we look at customers who are using file storage pervasively, there are a variety of different personas running a wide spectrum of workloads, starting from enterprise IT to DevOps platforms. File storage is a go-to environment for most use cases. So how would you serve such a broad and diverse spectrum of workloads? We've realized that customers consider really 3 things here. And first one is how easy is it to migrate a workload to cloud without having to re-architect? Secondly, how can we leverage the virtually unlimited scale cloud supports to ensure business continues and accelerates? And lastly, sharing data to use those precious data by many consumers like AI, ML, analytics, MarTech, AirTech, and containers, and etc. With the previous 3 key areas that matter the most to the customer, we focus on providing an environment and solution to meet that requirement. First, ease of migration. Second, provide a service with performance and scale. And lastly, simplicity in sharing data with security in mind. AWS provides a rich portfolio of fully managed file services to deliver optimized solutions across the broad spectrum of file-based workloads in the cloud. Amazon FSx provides popular commercial and open source file systems with rich capabilities as a fully managed service. Amazon EFS delivers the simplest way in the cloud to share the data across cloud resources. It is designed from ground up to leverage the cloud. It is serverless, fully elastic, and bottomless. Amazon File Cache delivers the easiest path to process the data in the cloud, no matter where the data resides, be that be on-premise, in cloud, or even S3 object storage. Now that we've looked at AWS storage services and the fundamentals behind how we design and provide our services, here are some of the questions that you should be asking to yourself. If you're considering to migrate your existing environment, it's important to understand what you are using today. Starting with the file system that you use on-premise today, move to a file system that is identical in AWS as a seamless migration path for on-premises file storage with like-for-like capabilities. Starting from FSx NetApp ONTAP, where we've partnered with NetApp to provide fully managed cloud-based NetApp file system, to FSx Lustre, which provides high performance with scale-out features that are suitable for HPC, AI, ML, media rendering, or big data workloads. If like-for-like is not what you believe to be the right way going forward, understanding which file protocols you are currently using will be important. For SMB protocol, we have FSx for Windows File Server or FSx for NetApp ONTAP, which supports multi-protocols. And for NFS, again, FSx NetApp ONTAP, or Amazon EFS, FSx for OpenZFS, and FSx for Lustre, which also supports NFS protocols natively. When it comes to applications, protocols and like-for-like migration may not be sufficient. So if we take a look at some of the characteristics and use cases of each file system that are commonly used by the customer, FSx Windows are suitable for Windows home directories, department group shares, Windows applications, MS SQL database, e-discovery, and etc. FSx native ONTAP are suitable for backup, DR, user shares, VDIs, home directories, databases, enterprise applications, and EDA workloads. OpenZFS are suitable for ML training, dev test environment, media processing, gaming, web serving, front-end EDA, and quantitative finance. For Lustre are suitable for GPU-heavy ML training, HPC workloads, data analytics, M&E workflows, and back-end EDA. And lastly, we've seen large number of customers adopting EFS for Linux home directories and containerized applications that require persistent storage. For customers who are particularly interested in enterprise features like snapshots, deduplications, compressions, sync provisioning, and etc., EFS is the best solution for elasticity, intelligent tiering to reduce the cost, and the ability to encrypt data as well as backup through native cloud solutions. FSx Windows supports deduplication, caching, and file access auditing. FSx native ONTAP supports multi-protocol, data tiering, compression, deduplication, caching, and many others. FSx OpenZFS supports compression, SIM provisioning, and cloning capabilities, and FSx Lustre with scale-out performance and S3 native integration along with compression. As each applications are unique in its nature, understanding your current environment as well as your application requirement is key to identifying which service or options are best suited for your own. Before we go any further, let's review some common misconceptions that I've heard and address them. With all the managed services we have, it's easy to go down a path and pick something without carefully reviewing its features or getting a guidance. This can lead to a service mismatch, leading to an unnecessary complexity. Being that frugality is one of our leadership principles, we want to ensure that customers are able to select a service that matches your need and gives you the flexibility to scale up or down when you need it. Okay, number one, I absolutely need multi-protocol. Well, multi-protocol file systems are often misunderstood features of NAS, as when you dive deep and review your applications, you often find that multi-protocol is not a hard requirement, though we can support it today with FSx native ONTAP. It might make sense to separate the workflows to individual file systems, especially since all of our services are fully managed. 2. Mission critical. With the introduction of IO2 Block Express, our SANS capability can provide enterprises with sub-millisecond latencies, and we'll be able to provision a single IO2 volume with up to 256,000 IOPS, 4,000 megabits per second throughput, and 64 terabytes of capacity, which is a four-fold jump in all metrics. Number 3. Third point on the deduplication, which is not true for customers who have a requirement of using deduplication or have data sets that will reduce using this technology. We can support this using FSx Windows and FSx native ONTAP today. FSx ONTAP storage efficiency features include deduplication, compression, and compaction. Lastly, latency-sensitive applications. Again, not necessarily. We have different storage classes with varying latencies to support your workflows. And you have a mission-critical latency-sensitive applications running with these file systems. Let's move on to reviewing the basic decision criteria that we here at AWS use to decide which is the right storage option for the customers. When we look at decision criteria, there are many factors which we need to understand, but mostly comes down to these 10. Number 1, protocols. Block, file, object. Which protocol do I need? Number 2, client types. Linux server, Windows server, Mac, or Unix. Number 3, IOPS. How much IOPS will I need? Number 4, latency. Is my application latency sensitive? Number 5, throughputs or bandwidths. How much traffic am I going to push through? Number 6, geographic scale. Is it okay with a single region, or does it require multi-region or need global? Number 7, how fast do I have to migrate? Number 8, are you looking to move to cloud-native services like containers? Number 9, do you have any backup or protection requirements? Lastly, what about DR requirements? With these decision criteria in mind, I've come up with 5 most common scenarios that were seen from the field, which could help you understand how anyone could go through the decision process. First, for a customer who are migrating existing applications to cloud, depending on whether your application is using SAN or directly attached storage, or application is using data on a NAS or file share, we'll look at both in detail. Firstly, for SAN or directly attached storage applications, we have a variety of choices when it comes to block storage, and sometimes it can be confusing on what to pick for which use case. Since this is a storage presentation, we will start with your Tier 1 enterprise workloads, where you're looking to drive a high number of IOPS with sub-millisecond latency as being the most important criteria. If that's the case, we have a couple of choices here. We announced IO2 Block Express, which delivers up to 256K IOPS and 4,000 megabits per second throughput, all with sub-millisecond low variance IO latency, with max volume size of up to 64 terabytes. If you have a business-critical workload that are on-premise today and are connecting to your enterprise SAN, you can get a comparable performance with IO2 Block Express. If you need directly attached storage, then you can consider i3 or i4 instance families, or any other instance types that has NVMe attached to it. If you need a single-digit millisecond latency, we have a couple of choices here as well: GP3, IO2, SC1, and ST1s. Now for SC1, which is very interesting, it provides a lowest cost at 1.5 cents per gigabyte, which is cheaper than S3 standard. If your application is unable to use S3IA or Glacier and needs block storage, this is the great choice. ST1, which many customers use today for use cases like big data, data warehousing, and log processing. For existing applications that are using NAS or file system, with 5 options in AWS file system family today, you might be wondering, what is the best file system for me? If you're migrating to cloud from on-premises, generally we recommend to use FSx NetApp ONTAP if you're coming from NetApp or any commodity NAS, or if you have general purpose multi-protocol file shares. FSx for Windows, if you're using self-managed Windows file shares. FSx for Lustre, if you're using Linux-based scale-out file systems like Lustre, GPFS, IBM Spectrum Scale, or Gluster or Isilons. If you need a truly cloud-native, fully elastic, pay-as-you-go NFS version 4 file system with virtually unlimited scaling of capacity that can be deployed and torn down upon demand, EFS is a great choice. Now let's take a look at a use case where you are trying to back up data to cloud. When considering backup to cloud, there have been 3 typical scenarios to consider. 1, using an existing backup softwares like Commvault, Veeam, Veritas, and etc. 2, replacing physical tapes and moving archiving to cloud. 3, using a NAS or file shares for volume or file backups. Right, so you have an application running on-prem, and those need to be protected. Typically, first copy of a backup will be kept on-premise, and then second copy moves over either to a secondary site or to a colo. Cloud becomes an extremely reliable and cost-effective target for these second copy backups. And most of the backup software partners, as highlighted here, meet and support this use case. And this is relatively a very low touch and low effort way in which customers can start using cloud storage, as most backup and recovery vendors have some easy way of interfacing with the cloud already. Now, for the backup solution running on-prem, it can talk to our storage services either natively, that is via REST APIs when it comes to S3, or if they do not have this capability, then storage gateway. So it is important to understand a few different things here. 1, really, can the backup solution talk natively to our service, or does it require storage gateway? Certain backup solutions do not support writing natively to some storage classes of S3. And also, you should try to ask yourself and answer, what type of data or application do I need to protect? What is the retention of that data? How often do I expect to recall that data back? And what deployment model or the backup solution am I using today? Well, let's take a quick look at a common architecture for an example. You basically have a concept of backup agents that you need to install on applications that need to be protected. Then you have a server, which is a controller of backup environments, where all metadata about backups and configuration is stored. And then the third component, which is the media server, this is a machine that takes backup data from a backup client and sends it over to a storage target, including the cloud. As most softwares, including Commvault, natively supports writing to S3 via REST APIs, you do not need storage gateway to be in the mix here. However, one thing to note and be careful of is you have to check with your software vendors to make sure that the connection is fully supported. Now let's take a quick look at scenario number 3, a hybrid model, where you are using cloud storage with the application sitting on-prem. In this scenario, I've prepared 4 most common use cases that were seen from the customer. 1. Use a file share from multiple sites with low latency network requirements. 2. Storing application data on cloud, but due to local processing requirements to keep application on-premise, for example, manufacturing. Number 3. Replacing tape archive and tape archive only. Number 4, and lastly, tiered archive to offload data growth spike. With FSx File Gateway, allows multi-user interactive file shares be set up locally that could work as group shares or project shares, allowing many clients to connect to Gateway, and the files that are stored in this gateway will sync to the cloud automatically without having to move them one by one. As File Gateway will sit within on-prem environment, allows you to have a low latency connection to these shares and suitable for CAD or CAM or media editing workloads. When we look at File Gateway more closer, you could also consider this as a repository for machine-generated data that will sync the data to cloud and keep the copies there securely, but available when you need them. With File Gateway, we have 2 flavors available today, Amazon S3 File Gateway and Amazon FSx File Gateway. S3 File Gateway is primarily being adopted by the customers who require native access to S3 object and frequently accessed files that are cached locally. As these services support S3 Lifecycle, allows you to cost optimize even further when needed. Amazon FSx File Gateway, on the other hand, is designed for a customer who need a file system and are more suitable for larger active users to access smaller files or mixed files. Volume Gateway, which is another flavor of AWS Storage Gateway, has primarily been designed for use cases like disaster recovery to cloud or migrating volumes to the cloud. Now, for customers who need to move tapes from on-prem, Tape Gateway will allow you to easily move existing physical tape libraries onto Amazon S3 Glacier, be that be Glacier Flexible Retrieval or Glacier Deep Archive. Lastly, for tiered approaches in case you need extra storage capacity during a spike, Amazon S3 File Gateway for archiving will be a perfect option. This allows you to cost-effectively scale, and as it's bandwidth optimized, only changes will be transferred to AWS Cloud. Now, we've talked about Amazon S3 earlier. One of the biggest trends that we've seen today is converting data into an asset that allows businesses to make informed decision-making. To do this, every piece of data is precious, and data lake is becoming more critical every day. A data lake is a centralized repository that allows you to store all your structured and unstructured data at any scale. When we look at data lake, there's really 2 scenarios. 1, building a new data lake, and 2, migrating existing data lake or warehouse to AWS. When we talk about data lake, there is nothing like Amazon S3. Amazon S3 offers you 11 nines of durability and 4 nines of availability out of the box. In terms of scalability, there's no limit as to how much data you can store in S3, and there's no limit to the number of objects that you have in S3 bucket. Your throughput scales automatically, also as you add more objects to your S3 buckets. We start with Amazon S3 at the center of data lake. First, we have the foundational service. These are services like lake formation to quickly set up your data lake. We have Glue, which is a managed service that enables you to perform a serverless ETL job. So your data can be prepared for analytics at a later time. S3 is also analytics optimized storage. And what does that mean? Well, first, you get the tools to transform your data into a columnar format, formats like Parquet or ORC, so your analytics can run a lot faster. Second, we have S3 Select, which lets you use SQL expressions to read only the specific portion of an object that your application really needs. Your analytics engines like Hive and Presto can use S3 Select natively. Our customers have seen performance improvements of as much as 400% from this. AWS gives you managed services like for analytics, business intelligence, and machine learning. We have a rich set of analytic portfolios that mostly work natively with S3. And Amazon SageMaker for machine learning job as well, which you can use to build, train, and deploy machine learning models in the cloud. Now, one way to look at this is S3 API has pretty much become the new normal of the data storage world. The application that matter to you speak that language, and third-party data that may be of value to your business is readily accessible in S3 too. But perhaps more critical than any other benefit is that having your data lake on S3 lets you take advantage of a vast ecosystem of other services and integrations currently supported with S3. Now, if we look at the journey of data, there are 5 steps that any data will go through in a general sense. With data producer, where the data is generated, will be then ingested into a platform which will then be analyzed for insights that is consumed by an application or the user. Once this data has consumed, will then need to be archived so that we can reference it back at a later time. To go through this journey of data with analytics, we need to ensure that there is a stable and secure data ingest patterns. Through File Gateway, which we've looked at previously, or using a data migration service like DataSync, allows you to set up a continuous and stable data ingest pipeline so data can be stored on Amazon S3 to be analyzed. Now, the last scenario is when you're building a new application. We've looked at each characteristics of block, file, and object, and using a combination of these. But really, understanding your application requirement is always the first, and that's where it lands as well. One thing to note here is when you're building a new application, always try to design for agility and make sure you're planning ahead for unexpected. For example, what if traffic spikes and logs are falling in like no other? Or what if there is an unexpected natural disaster? Planning for these type of events will ensure your business continuity as well as customer satisfaction to increase. As we wrap up today, let's put everything together. 1, understand your current setup if you're migrating. 2, if you're transforming, make sure your application characteristic is well defined. Number 3, if you're building a new application, plan it accordingly. And finally, ensure you're prepared for a dynamically managed growth through monitoring, operational simplicity, and with AWS. And please visit Skill Builder, our online center, and explore over 600 free digital courses, hands-on labs, and role-based games. Thank you very much for tuning in to accelerate your cloud architectures with the right storage options, and hope this information is able to help you and your business to innovate with data in the most optimal way by choosing the right storage options. Thank you again, and please remember to fill out a survey so we can improve our sessions in the future.